The US Supreme Court has handed victory to President Trump by partially allowing his temporary ban on travellers from 6 mainly Muslim-majority countries to come into effect. The justices will now consider in October whether the policy, which bans citizens for 90 days and refugees for 120 days, should be upheld or struck down. Mr. Trump says the ban is needed for national security, despite criticism that it is in violation of the US Constitution. Well, our correspondent Anthony Zerka is in Washington for us. Anthony, this has been an ongoing tussle between Mr. Trump and the courts, so bring us up to speed.
All right, well, what the Supreme Court justices said was that the ban could go into effect for individuals in those 6 countries and refugees who did not have bona fide relationships with the United States. Now, the court described a bona fide relationship as, say, having family members already in the United States, to have some sort of an employment agreement with a company based in the United States, or to have an education agreement, a scholarship or admission into U.S. school. So, say if you were living in Iran and you were a student coming over to the U.S., you had already been admitted to a school in the U.S., you could still enter into the country. The ban didn't apply to you. But for everyone else in those 6 countries and individuals who had been granted even refugee status and had already been vetted, the court justices said that Donald Trump can essentially close the borders to them during what they said would be a 90-day review process. And all of this then goes on to next autumn, when the Supreme Court will take a closer look at this case on its merits.
So why the change now, given that initially this ban was knocked back?
Well, this was the first chance for the Supreme Court to take a look at it. And if you looked at the lower court opinions, it's interesting. These court justices at the appellate level, they looked a lot at the religious discrimination they saw in the ban. They said that it discriminated against Muslims. They looked at Donald Trump's tweets. They looked at his speeches. They looked at his surrogate statements. The Supreme Court justices didn't pay any attention to that whatsoever. They looked at existing statute and presidential power, and they said that in areas of national security, the president has sweeping powers, and that the interests in preserving the country, protecting the country, outweigh any concerns of individuals abroad who do not have real ties to the U.S.
So now 6 countries whose citizens are going to be, one could say, inconvenienced, if that's not too weak a word. Any response yet from those countries?
No response yet. It'll be interesting to see how the Trump administration implements this, how the lower courts interpret bona fide relationships. It's a little vague, the Supreme Court ruling. Leaves some flexibility what exactly constitutes a bona fide relationship. So, students can come in, but there's no guarantee of what type of students, what sort of schools they're going to. So I think we're going to have to wait to see how all of this plays out. The Trump administration has said that within 72 hours of court decision, they were going to re-implement the travel ban. So I think you're going to see them act fairly quickly.
Okay. Anthony Zerka, thanks very much.